Colours of the Causeway Coast, audio descriptive text. This video is an audio description of the colours of the Causeway Coast Guide. The guide sets out some key information about the wildflowers in the Causeway Coast area of outstanding natural beauty. It contains 30 pages with a mixture of text and photographs. The recording was produced by Direct Access on behalf of Causeway Coast and Glens Heritage Trust. The Trust is a charity devoted to protecting and enhancing the unique heritage of the Causeway Coast and Glens area. My name is Eilish Mackay. This recording was done on the 13th of March 2021. Contents: 1. Introduction. 2. About plants and flowers. 3. Colours of the seashore. 4. Colours of the sand dunes. 5. Colours of the sea cliffs. 6. Colours of the coast heath and grassland. 7. Other colours. 8. Colours of the orchids. 9. Opportunities and threats. 10. Leave no trace. 11. Visitor information and our funders. 1. Introduction. The Causeway Coast area of outstanding natural beauty is one of 8 areas in Northern Ireland and one of 46 in the United Kingdom recognised as being a landscape of national importance. Designated in 1989 as an area of outstanding natural beauty for its landscapes of national importance, the Causeway Coast area of outstanding natural beauty stretches from Portrush to Ballycastle, extending for 30 kilometres along the North Antrim coast. The area of outstanding natural beauty has a wide variety of landscapes, including the Giant's Causeway and Causeway Coast World Heritage Site. The Giant's Causeway and Causeway Coast Site was inscribed as a World Heritage Site by UNESCO in 1986. It is the only World Heritage Site in Northern Ireland and one of 3 on the island of Ireland. The area of outstanding natural beauty is characterised by a complex and distinctive coastline, including beaches, sand dunes, and contrasting basalt and chalk cliffs. Some of the sand dune systems, such as White Park Bay, are extensive and dynamic habitats with 4 dunes, mobile dunes, and fixed dunes evolving into grassland and scrub. The cliff tops mainly consist of rich coastal heath and unimproved species-rich grassland. The Causeway Plateau contains very few trees and is mainly used for grazing with fields separated by hedges. The ecology around Bushmills and the Bush Valley is distinctive from other areas of the area of outstanding natural beauty and mainly influenced by the Bush River. It's also influenced by human activity with planted woodland and mixed farmland. For its small area, the Causeway Coast area of outstanding natural beauty has a wide range of habitats, highlighting the diversity of wildflowers found. This wide range of habitats is influenced by various natural conditions. These include the type of soil, such as acidic basalt or basic chalk, the humidity, the stability of the soil, the exposure to the wind, the sea and the sun, and the presence or absence of other plants. All these conditions affect the wide variety of wildflowers found in the Causeway Coast area of outstanding natural beauty, adding many colours to the landscape when blooming in spring and summer. This video guide gives a non-exhaustive description of the wildflowers that can be spotted along the Causeway Coast AONB. Wildflowers are described for each natural habitat of the Causeway Coast ANOB. However, some of the wildflowers may be present in more than one habitat and are sometimes absent from a habitat they should normally be associated with. Some of the flowers described are rare and sensitive. Care needs to be given when visiting the area to preserve these flowers and to look after the wider environment. 2. About plants and flowers. Flowers are found on some plants called angiosperms or flowering plants. Land plants are separated in many groups depending on their structure and type of reproduction. Land plants or embryophytes can be either non-vascular, known as bryophytes, or vascular, known as tracheophytes. Bryophytes lack vascular tissue that circulates liquids. They neither have flowers nor produce seeds, reproducing via spores. They include liverworts and mosses. Tracheophytes are those plants that have lignified tissues for conducting water, minerals, and photosynthetic products through the plant. This group is divided into the non-seed-bearing plants and the seed-bearing plants, referred to as spermatophytes. The non-seed-bearing plants include the ferns. Spermatophytes or phanerogams comprise those plants that produce seeds. This group can be divided in non-flowering groups and flowering group. Flowering plants are the most widespread group of land plants. The flower is the reproductive structure of the angiosperms. The biological function of a flower is to facilitate the union of pollen, male cells, with the ovules, egg cells, to produce seeds. Self-pollinated flowers are flowers that pollinate themselves before the flowers open. Only a few plants are self-pollinated. Insect-pollinated flowers attract and use insects such as bees or butterflies to transfer the pollen from one plant to the other. These are bright and colourful to attract insects which feed off the nectar. The insects become covered in pollen, which is then transferred to another plant of the same type when they move on for more nectar. As a result, the pollen falls onto the female reproductive parts of the flowers and fertilises the ovules. These include most of the bright wildflowers found along the Causeway Coast. Wind-pollinated flowers use wind to help pollinate. These flowers often appear dull and drab as they do not need to attract insects. They also are often unremarkable and coloured green or yellow. These include species such as the marram grass. Most of the flowers described in the guide are native wildflowers. Some flowers found in the countryside are non-native as they have been planted or deliberately introduced by people. Some, like rhododendron, laurel and Japanese knotweed, can grow so prolifically that they smother natural vegetation to the detriment of native wildlife. 3. Colours of the seashore. Just above the limit of high tide, the foreshore, with its harsh living conditions, is a very exposed habitat for plants. Seawater spray, wind and unstable soil, gravel and sand make difficult conditions for plants to gain a foothold. However, specially adapted plants manage to colonise this area. These plants are usually small, low-growing, with fleshy leaves and include species such as the scentless mayweed, sea milkwort, sea sandwort, sea beet, spear-leaved orach, sea bindweed, scurvy grass, sea holly, oyster plant, Scots lovage and sea couch. In more sheltered areas, species adapted to regular immersion by the tide, such as the sea aster or the salt marsh flat sedge, colonise the salt marsh habitats. I will describe some of the plants we can find. Oyster plant. Ireland is the southern limit of the distribution of this plant. The plant blooms between June and August with flowers arranged as a grape, with first pink then blue flowers. The plant grows in the upper part of the shingle. This is a rare plant protected in Northern Ireland under the Wildlife Order Northern Ireland 1985. Scots lovage. Northern Ireland is the southern limit of the distribution of this rare plant. It is found in the upper seashore, usually on rocks or shingle. Part of the umbellifer family, like the carrot, it blooms with white flowers arranged in umbels between June and July. Scottish scurvy grass is a similar form of the common scurvy grass. Therefore, this plant is considered as a subspecies. It is endemic to Britain and Ireland and not found elsewhere. The plant blooms between April and June and the flowers are small with 4 white or pale mauve petals. It is a rare plant of the seashore compared to the widely spread common scurvy grass. The Scottish scurvy grass is a UK priority species. Sea aster is found along the seashore, especially in salt marshes. The sea aster is the only native wild aster. Over the summer, the plant produces a handsome lilac or pale blue daisy-like flower. The flowers have a star shape, hence the name of the plant, aster, Greek word for star. Sea sandwort is found in sandy areas of the shore. This evergreen perennial plant can be spotted throughout the year. The leaves are short and broad and arranged in 4 crowded rows along the stems. The whole plant is quite low growing. Flowers present between May and August are greenish white and rather insignificant, succeeded by a spherical green dry fruit. Sea bindweed is a rare perennial native plant of sand or shingle. The flower is a typical bindweed, trumpet shape, bright pink in colour, open during the day and closed at night. The plant blooms between June and August. Sea holly is another rare plant, very distinctive and totally unmistakable. It occurs in sandy ground in the upper seashore. It has broad, leathery leaves, is blue-green in colour with noticeable white veins. The thick, waxy cuticle on the leaves prevents water loss and protects from the effects of salt water. The plant blooms between June and August with tiny pale blue flowers with spiny bracts. Four, colours of the sand dunes. Sand dunes are formed from wind-blown, sand blown off exposed sandy beaches. The sand accumulates into ridges which originally lie parallel to the direction of the prevailing winds. Over time, these ridges may break up and a more irregular arrangement of hills, also known as dunes and hollows or dune slacks, forms. Sand dune systems are of great importance to biodiversity and many are preserved. The most important sand dune systems in the Causeway Coast area of outstanding natural beauty are White Park Bay, Bushfoot, East Strand and White Rocks. Plant colonisation of the young dunes can assist the fixation of the dune. The marram grass plays an important role in this process as it binds loose, wind-blown sand with a network of branching rhizomes. Marram grass is adapted to the dry conditions by having leaves which are tightly rolled to protect it from desiccation. Once stabilised by plants such as the marram grass, the dunes can be colonised by other species such as the common bird's foot trefoil, spring squill, heath dog violet and other colourful species, evolving ultimately into grey dunes where less than 10% of the dune comprises visible sand. Biodiversity in the dune slacks and grey dunes is notably high as better conditions are provided. Sheltered from wind and salt spray enable more plants to colonise. A good example of this succession is White Park Bay, renowned for the diversity of orchids present in the dunes. Orchids are separately described later. I will describe some of the plants we can find. Spring squill is one of the earliest plants to bloom in the dunes. The spring squill usually grows in short grazed swards, sometimes covering large areas of the dunes and forming characteristic light blue patches in early May. It is a member of the lily family. The best place to see this plant in the Causeway Coast is at White Park Bay. Common bird's foot trefoil is a herbaceous perennial common in the dry grassland such as the dunes. The plant blooms between June and September with recognisable yellow pea flowers. Its black seed head looks like the toes of a bird's foot and the leaves have 3 lobes, hence trefoil. Heath dog violet is similar to the common dog violet, which is very common in hedgerows and woodland in Northern Ireland. The heath dog violet differs by its blue colour and its presence in sand dunes. Like all violets, the lowest petal has a nectar-containing spur, which in this case is pale yellow. Wild pansy is very common in sand dunes. The flowers of the wild pansy occur between April and September and can be violet, pink or yellow or all 3 colours together, hence its Latin name, tricolour. Field gentian is a small member of the gentian family found in dune grasslands. Its flowers always have 4 petals and sepals and are reluctant to open except in bright sun. They are normally bluish purple. Meadow cranesbill is a beautiful wild geranium. The native distribution of the meadow cranesbill is restricted to the Causeway Coast area of outstanding natural beauty in Northern Ireland. It has, however, been introduced in other parts of Ireland. Its association with the North Antrim coast has given rise to its local common name of blue flower of Dunluce. Another more common coastal geranium, the dove's foot crane's bill, can also be spotted in the dunes. The Portland spurge and the sea spurge are found exclusively on sand dunes, the Causeway Coast area of outstanding natural beauty being one of the few places where they are found. The Portland spurge is much commoner than the sea spurge and not as fleshy. Grass of Parnassus is actually a flower. Its name is inherited from ancient Greece. The cattle on Mount Parnassus appreciated the plant, therefore considered it as an honorary grass. The grass of Parnassus is mostly found in the slacks between the dunes as it requires wetter conditions. Its special and beautiful white flowers have 5 petals with conspicuous veins growing singly on stem tips. The eyebright is a native plant of the dunes. The upper lip of the flower has 2 upward curving well-notched lobes, as the lower lip is divided into 3 well-notched lobes. This is one of the few species of eyebrights recorded in Northern Ireland, all of them semi-parasitic on grasses and other plants. Burnet rose is a beautiful native rose with creamy white flowers and a very dark, almost black, round fruit or hip. This is the spiniest of all the native rose species. Early forget-me-not low-growing plants will bloom between April and June with tiny mid-blue flowers with yellow centres. Five, colours of sea cliffs. The Causeway Coast area of outstanding natural beauty is renowned for its striking sea cliffs. The vegetation found along them varies depending on numerous factors such as the type of rock, mainly basalt or limestone, the exposure to the wind or to the sun, the angle of the rock slope, the stability of the rock. Numerous types of habitats can be found, from the scrub type habitat at the sheltered cliff bottoms to the dry glassland at the top of the exposed cliffs, or shingle along cliffs exposed to winds and seawater spray. However, some species such as sea campion, thrift and wild thyme are typical to the sea cliffs. I will describe some of the plants we can find. Sea campion is a common species of sea cliffs along the Causeway Coast area of outstanding natural beauty. Its white flowers appear in June and July and are noticeable with the inflated pinkish-brown cylindrical calyx tubes. Thrift, also known as sea pink, is common along the Causeway Coast area of outstanding natural beauty. It turns large areas of cliffs pink over the end of spring and the summer, usually turning white later in the summer. Wild thyme is a native species common of rock outcrops. The plant forms dense, slightly aromatic mats, colouring the cliffs in pink-purple between May and September. The thyme broom rape can be found within the mats as it parasitises wild thyme. The plant is purplish-red when fresh, soon turning brown and dry-looking, like a dead plant. It has no green parts as it feeds on the host plant. Juniper is one of the 2 conifers native to Northern Ireland, mostly low-growing as it's found in exposed situations such as rocky outcrops. Male and female flowers are produced on different plants. The female flower produces berries which remain green for a year or so, then ripen to become blue-black. This is a UK priority plant species as it has declined over the years. In Northern Ireland it has a restricted distribution, present on the Causeway Coast, Rathlin Island, the Mournes and Fermanagh. Rock sea spurry is a common plant of the sea cliffs. The rock sea spurry blooms between June and September with pink or white flowers. The hairy leaves are fleshy and narrow. English stonecrop is another typical plant found on outcrops. The English stonecrop is a low-growing, spreading, succulent species with small, usually reddish leaves and white or pink star-shaped flowers. The leaves are fleshy, forming numerous rosettes and densely leaved short shoots. The kidney vetch, also called lady's fingers, is a common plant of coastal rocky outcrops in Northern Ireland. A subspecies of vetch, Laponica, is only found on the north coast. The kidney vetch is more common on chalk soil. Harebell is a common sight along the Causeway Coast of outstanding natural beauty. This pretty flower is found on the basaltic cliffs and in the dunes. The pale blue flowers are bell-shaped and can be seen between July and September. Sheepsbit contains bright blue-purple flowers that sprawl above ground. They can be spotted along sea cliffs of the Causeway Coast area of outstanding natural beauty between May and August. 6. Colours of the coast heath and grassland. These habitats are mostly found at the top of cliffs. The Causeway Plateau contains very few trees due to the harsh wind conditions, leaving space for a rich mosaic of heath and species-rich grasslands. The type of plants found depends on the conditions on the ground, such as the type of soil, its underlying geology, the humidity and drainage of the soil, the other species present, and also the level of grazing. Undergrazed areas allow the development of the gorse, or whin, and heather, sometimes developing into large impenetrable patches. Dry grassland presents similar plants than those found on the fixed dunes, with plants such as spring squill, wood vetch, or bird's foot trefoil. Chalk grassland is often home to a wide range of orchids. Species of marsh and peat habitats can be found in wet pockets of land, such as cottongrass, bog asphodel, devil's bit scabious, bog pimpernel, and lousewort, alongside insect-eating plants such as the sundew and the butterwort. Where levels of grazing is higher, species such as the cuckoo flower or the wild carrot can be found. On pastures, and especially improved pastures, the diversity of wildlife is limited, as species of high grazing value are privileged through the more intensive use of fertilisers and pesticides. I will describe some of the plants we can find. Gorse and western gorse, or whin, can be found in two forms. Gorse is the commonest species found all over Northern Ireland, whilst in North Antrim, western gorse is mainly found along the Causeway Coast. Both look similar, producing dense masses of yellow pea-like flowers. However, western gorse is generally a smaller, more compact shrub with smaller spines. Gorse blooms throughout the year, with a peak in spring, whilst western gorse blooms mostly between July and September. Both develop in dense shrub, taking over other species when overgrown, and both prefer acidic soil. Gorse in bloom has a particular coconut smell. Heather, bell heather and cross-leaved heath are very common in Northern Ireland in acid soils. They often grow at the expense of other species, covering extensive areas. The flowers are pink-purple, very appreciated by bees, and can be seen over the summer, especially late summer. Flowers of bell heather and cross-leaved heath are bell-shaped and completely different than the common heather. Bell heather has dark green leaves, not grey above, like cross-leaved heath. Wood vetch is mostly found in heathy ground along the coast. It can reach up to 2 metres high and produces 5 to 20 with white purplish veins flowers in one-sided inflorescence. The leaves have tendrils which allow the plant to attach to nearby support. A member of the pea family, the seeds are held in pods, released when dried and ripened in the sun. Cottongrass is a common sight in acid peaty soils. The plant produces small green or brown flowers in May and June, followed by the fruits covered with white cotton-like hairs. Bog asphodel is common in wet and very acidic situations, and the bog asphodel is between 10 and 40 centimetres tall and consists of an erect, leafy stem which terminates in a group of 6 to 20 star-like yellow flowers at its tip. These flowers appear between July and September, then are replaced by orange-brown fruit capsules. It was once thought that cattle grazing on this plant suffered from brittle bones, and this is reflected in the plant's Latin name of ossifragum, spelt Ossifragun, meaning bone breaker. In fact, the lack of calcium in bog plants as a whole would have led to nutrient deficiencies in those cattle that grazed there. Common butterwort and round-leaved sundew are common on wet boggy soils. The butterwort and the sundew have leaves and stems covered with sticky glands which trap insects. The soft parts of the insects are digested and absorbed into the leaf. This is an adaptation to nutrient-poor soils. The single flower of the common butterwort is a beautiful blue colour and is carried on a long stalk arising from the centre of the leaf rosette. Devil's bit scabious is common in wet grounds, blooming July to September, giving typical blue mauve flowers. It is so called because its roots stop abruptly, as if they have been bitten off, apparently out of spite by the devil, jealous because of the healing properties of the plant. The cuckoo flower is a common herbaceous plant of damp meadows and pasture. It is so called because of its time of main flowering coinciding with the arrival of the cuckoo in spring. The flowers are very variable in colour, from white to mauve, and the basal leaves are round or oval. The wild carrot is frequent in dry pastures in the Causeway Coast area of outstanding natural beauty. It is the wild ancestor of our cultivated carrot. It blooms every 2 years in June to August and gives umbels of small white or white pinkish flowers, with the central flower often red. It attracts huge numbers of pollen and nectar-hungry insects. Seven, other colours. Although coastal cliff and grassland habitats represent the main natural habitats of the Causeway Coast area of outstanding natural beauty, other habitats occur here too. Woodland, hedges, rivers and standing waters add to the diversity of the landscape and have their own characteristic plants. The main river in the Causeway Coast area of outstanding natural beauty is the River Bush. Alongside it and around wet flushes in other parts of the area of outstanding natural beauty, species adapted to very wet conditions such as the yellow iris or the marsh marigold can be seen. Small pockets of woodland, especially around bushmills, are present, mostly planted by man. Some plants commonly found in Northern Irish woodlands can be seen, such as the primrose, the common dog violet, the wood anemone, the bluebell or the wild garlic. Most of them have flowers in early spring, before the trees get their leaves. Hedges separating farm fields are very rich habitats, and the number and diversity of plants present there is high. Species like hawthorn, blackthorn, bramble, fuchsia or gorse form give the hedges their structure, with hedge-bottom plants such as herb robert or great horsetail also found. The strongly scented honeysuckle can also be spotted climbing hedges. I will describe some of the plants we can find. The yellow iris is the only wild iris native to Ireland. Also called yellow flag, its flowers are bright yellow with purple veins and can be seen between May and July. The marsh marigold is very common on riversides around flushes or wet meadows. It produces golden yellow flowers like buttercup, but much larger in early summer. Primroses flower in spring and early summer. The primrose is common in woodlands and hedge banks. The name of the plant is derived from prima rosa, which means the first rose, because of the fact that it flowers early in the year. This species is protected under the 1985 Wildlife Order. The common dog violet is common in shady places such as woodland and hedgerows. Blooming in early summer, the plant produces violet blue flowers with branched purple veins on lower petals. It is the commonest of the wild violets. The wood anemone is another early spring flowering species found in woodlands with its delicate white flowers. The plant is a good indicator of ancient woodland. Bluebells are common in woodland and hedge banks, often carpeting the ground with bell-shaped blue flowers in spring. Flowers can occasionally be white or purple. The presence of the plant indicates long established woodland. The introduced Spanish bluebell can in some areas take over the native Irish bluebell and threaten its population. The wild garlic is another early spring species, sometimes growing alongside species such as the bluebell. It forms wide carpets of white flowers and fills the air with its characteristic strong garlic smell. The leaves and flowers are edible and can be used in salad or pasta dishes. Blackthorn is common in hedges as a spiny shrub producing masses of small white flowers in spring and equally large numbers of juicy fruits in the autumn. The blackthorn fruits, or sloes, are too bitter for human consumption, except to make liqueur such as the sloe gin. Commonly used for hedges, the fuchsia is not native to Ireland and was introduced from South America. It has been widely used as a hedging plant, especially along the coast, as it is a vigorous and fast grower. The flowers are similar to garden fuchsia with red sepals and violet petals. The herb Robert is a common species of the geranium family found in woodland and hedges. It is easily recognised by its small pinkish purple flowers, the characteristic fern-like leaves and reddish stem. The flowers can occasionally be white. Great horsetail is common in hedge banks. It produces two different types of stem. First, in early spring, it produces new, unbranched whitish stems which terminate in large spore-producing cones. These are followed by the vegetative stem, heavily branched, with whorls of 14 to 40 branches. The leaves are replaced by toothed sheaths. 8. Colours of the orchids. Some sites within the area of outstanding natural beauty are particularly important for their wildflowers diversity. The dune system at White Park Bay, designated as an area of special scientific interest, is the only dune system in the area of outstanding natural beauty not to be partially developed as a golf links. White Park Bay, along other chalk grasslands in the area of outstanding natural beauty, such as at Larry Bain or Carrigareed, is particularly notable for its orchids, of which some are rare and sensitive. The early purple orchid, the earliest wild orchid to flower, the common spotted orchid, heath spotted orchid, the northern marsh orchid, the fragrant orchid, so called because of its powerful scent, the lesser butterfly orchid and greater butterfly orchid, recognisable by the striking appearance of their white flowers, the common twiblade, taking its name from its two large oval leaves, the frog orchid, the pyramidal orchid, so called because of its rounded pyramidal shape, the bee orchid, the small white orchid, and the Irish lady's tresses are all present in the area of outstanding natural beauty. Out of the common spotted orchid, heath spotted orchid, and northern marsh orchid, the common spotted orchid is especially found in damp pastures and dune slags. The leaves are usually, but not always, spotted. The flowers vary enormously in colour from white to deep pink. It is often found alongside the heath spotted orchid and the northern marsh orchid, with which it often produces hybrids. The heath spotted orchid is very similar to the common spotted orchid, but usually less spotted, with flowers ranging from whitish to deep pink. The northern marsh orchid only produces deep purple flowers. The frog orchid, with its greenish flowers, is a rather discreet plant, merging into the background vegetation. Found particularly in sand dunes, it flowers between June and August. Small white orchids are a rare species, also known as white mountain orchid. It is a small plant, rarely over 6 inches, with a small compact flower head, with the yellowish white flowers somewhat drooping and turned to the side. It flowers in June. This species is protected in Northern Ireland under the 1985 Wildlife Order. The bee orchid grows in sand dunes and other calcareous habitats. Common in the Mediterranean, it is a rarer species here, protected in Northern Ireland under the 1985 Wildlife Order. Each year it produces between 2 and 10 striking flowers blooming in June. Although the flower looks like a bee, which is an evolution to attract bees to pollinate the flowers, they are almost exclusively self-pollinating. Irish lady's tresses is only found in Europe, in the UK and Ireland. This species is widespread in America. It was first recorded in Northern Ireland in 1892. The flowers are tubular, whitish or cream-coloured scented, and arranged in 3 slightly twisting rows along the spike as a tress, hence its name. This species is rare and sensitive and is a UK priority species, thus is protected in Northern Ireland under the 1985 Wildlife Order. Nine, opportunities and threats. Whilst important to the social and economic life of the area, some human activities can have a negative impact on our wildflowers. Equally, many industries, like tourism, depend on a high-quality environment. It is critical to ensure we manage this resource sensitively and appropriately for the benefit of future generations. Development put a significant pressure on coastal natural habitats in the Causeway Coast area of outstanding natural beauty. The risk in allowing big stretches of development is the habitat fragmentation, leading to the disappearance of plant communities and species unable to reproduce. Sand dune systems host a very diverse plant life. However, only one of these in the Causeway Coast area of outstanding natural beauty has not been developed into a Gulf link. Farming practice in Northern Ireland has shaped and still continues to shape our landscape and biodiversity. Pastures, an important farming activity in the Causeway Coast area of outstanding natural beauty, has allowed the control of vigorous species such as gorse for the benefit of numerous other species to grow. However, on improved pastures or overgrazed grassland, the diversity of species found is dramatically lowered, allowing a handful of grazing-tolerant species to dominate, such as the perennial ryegrass. Other farming practices, such as the field boundaries and hedges, offer good refuges for Northern Ireland biodiversity and should be preserved and encouraged. Both development and farming can lead to habitat fragmentation. For plants, this can mean isolation of populations. Restricted genetic mixing makes small, isolated populations very vulnerable to extinction. Juniper on the Causeway Coast is a good example of this. It is therefore important to look at wider landscapes when conserving plants to ensure that there are good linkages between good quality habitats, also known as green corridor. Plants not native from Northern Ireland have been introduced to Northern Ireland over time, some intentionally for farming purposes or for ornamental purposes in gardens, some unintentionally. Some of these can, as invasive species, outcompete and replace native species. Plants like the Japanese knotweed, native from East Asia and introduced in Irish gardens in the middle of the 19th century, can overgrow and form extensive patches which virtually obliterate other plant species, except for the early flowering species such as bluebell. Bluebell is also threatened by the Spanish bluebell, originating from the Iberian countries and North Africa. These can take over or hybridise with the Irish bluebell. In the long term, climate change poses the greatest threat to our environment. Climate change has the potential to completely change the physical, chemical and biological characteristics of our environment. Many argue this change is already well underway. The possible impacts include the sea level rise that would take over the coastal species. Another impact, the change of climate with milder and wetter winters and drier, warmer summers, could have an effect on many sensitive species. Although discovering and visiting the rich environment of the Causeway Coast area of outstanding natural beauty is an asset, care has to be taken to some sensitive species. A possible impact is that over-frequentation of a site through tramping may cause damage to the local environment. Picking plants can have a significant impact on the reproduction of some species, leading to their decline and also on the wider environment, especially insects feeding on these plants. In 1994, the UK developed its first list of priority species. In 1998, a Northern Ireland biodiversity group was set up, and part of this group's remit was to identify priority species for Northern Ireland. This was achieved in 1999 in the Biodiversity Strategy proposals. There are currently 1,150 UK priority species and 481 Northern Ireland's priority species. These are species under threat that require conservation actions. The conservation of these species is undertaken through the publication and implementation of Biodiversity Action Plans, BAP, at UK, Northern Ireland or All Ireland level. All wild plants are given some measure of protection in Northern Ireland and under the Wildlife NI Order, 1985. Some are given special protection to prevent intentional picking, uprooting or destroying them. The order also provides a basis to control non-native and invasive species. 10. Leave no trace. In order to minimise your social and environmental impacts on the outdoors, please follow the principles of Leave No Trace. Leave No Trace is an outdoor ethics educational programme designed to promote and inspire responsible outdoor recreation through education, research and partnerships. Causeway Coast and Glens Heritage Trust supports the 7 principles of Leave No Trace. 1. Plan ahead and prepare. 2. Be considerate of others. 3. Respect farm animals and wildlife. 4. Travel and camp on durable ground, only in designated camping areas. 5. Leave what you find. 6. Dispose of waste properly. 7. Minimise the effects of fire. For more information, please visit www.leavenotraceireland.org. Practising a leave no trace ethic is very simple. Make it hard for others to see or hear you and leave no trace of your visit. 11. Visitor information and our funders. This video is part of Causeway Coast and Glens Heritage Trust's ongoing work to promote the special qualities and heritage of our protected landscapes. The publication and further information can be found at ccght.org. Follow us on Facebook at Causeway Coast and Glens Heritage Trust or Twitter at ccght. The following logos are on the screen. Causeway Coast and Glens Heritage Trust in red with 2 ferns. Antrim Coast and Glens Area of Outstanding Natural Beauty logo illustrating cliffs by the sea. Benevena Area of Outstanding Natural Beauty logo featuring a building on a cliff face. Causeway Coast Area of Outstanding Natural Beauty logo featuring a duck on the coast. We're grateful to our funders who are Department of Agriculture, Environment and Rural Affairs logo, Northern Ireland Environment Agency logo with the E illustrating land, sky and sea, Causeway Coast and Glens Borough Council logo, Mid and East Antrim Borough Council logo, Tourism Northern Ireland logo with a red and white shamrock on a green background. A special thanks for supporting these videos to Department for Communities logo in English, Irish and Ulster Scots, Heritage Fund logo illustrating fingers crossed. This marks the end of this recording. Thank you.